Oh, cool. All right. Thanks, Alex. All right. Well, hi everyone. My name is Jay. And I'll let Pam and Perry introduce themselves too. But my name's Jay, and I'm the executive director of the Boulder Outdoor Survival School. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us on this Saturday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. I guess it could be morning. I don't know what time it is in Australia, but what we're gonna do the purpose of this is really just to give some more insight into what the Boulder Outdoor Survival School is and what a boss. I'm just gonna abbreviate that as boss because that's what we do. Um, at boss, just a little bit more about what a boss course is like and what boss is, and then take your questions. I'll 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 let Pam and Perry introduce themselves, but I'll give a bit of my story, and then we'll take questions from anyone who's on about anything. You can ask, what's a typical boss student like? What do you do to train for a course? Is it really hard? Is it easy? Is it what will I learn? What will I not learn? Whatever. I mean, there's no any question is totally okay. We may answer some of it as we lay out our little chat, but then happy to take any questions that you want. And for that part, if you, I think if you want to be, Alex can jump in here and correct me. I think if you want to be seen on the screen, which would be awesome, you do something called call in live. I'm kind of a Luddite, which just works well for working at Boss, but and then you can also just chat your question too. So those would be the two ways to ask questions. So I don't know, Pam, you want to introduce yourself?
Great. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Pam, and I'm an instructor here at Boss, and I'm happy to answer any questions about our skills courses. And welcome to the chat. So, yeah, and I'll pass it over to Perry.
Thanks, Pam. My name is Perry. I'm a head instructor here at Boss. I took my student course in 2010, and I've been an instructor ever since. I still remember my student course pretty well. Sticks with you. Yeah, and I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Pam and Perry. Thanks for being here. And again, thanks for everyone who's taken time out of your Saturday to join us. Yeah, so my name is Jay, and I'm the executive director. I'm also an apprentice, so I'm in the process of training to be an instructor. I took my student course in 2021, and so it's a pretty fresh experience for me. And so a lot of times on a course, the apprentice is kind of the bridge between instructors who've tend to have taken their course a while ago, and students who are obviously on the course there for the first or second. We do have a lot of repeat students, by the way, so sometimes students will be on their second, third, fourth course. We have a student named Chris Foster who I think Chris is in her early 60s, and she's taking her 13th course this season. So she's taken every single one of our offerings, sometimes multiple times. So, that's a good, who's a boss course for. Anyone who, has the gumption to do it is honestly the short answer. But I'll just tell my story quickly of what drew me to boss and what my student course was like, and how that course is, how the lasting effects of that course have worked for me, or benefited me really in my regular life. So as I said, I took the 14-day course in September of 2021, and I was born in Macon, Georgia, and had a pretty rural, suburban slash rural upbringing. Spent a ton of time outdoors. It was like that's all I could do. My mom basically wouldn't let us stay in the house. There were three of us. I have four kids now, and I could totally relate. um, she just would send us out to play. And so I had a really connected life to the outdoors. And then when I was 18, I went to college in New York City and pretty rapidly lost my connection to the outdoors. And when I had my first child, which was 12 and a half years ago, I felt this real pull to get back outside again. Honestly, I didn't really know how to parent a kid unless I was outdoors. Um, and so I started taking first that boy, and then I have three daughters. I started taking them outdoors, and we would go deeper and deeper into nature. And I there had this nagging feeling, which turned out to be true, that I had no idea what I was doing out there. That as we got farther, certainly as we started camping and as we started camping a little farther afield, that if anything went wrong and this didn't work, that I had absolutely no idea what to do. Um, and I fancied myself a real outdoorsman. Like I grew up like, spending a lot of time outdoors, and I realized that I didn't really know what I was doing. And that kind of stuck there a little bit, like the like little kids depending on me, and I didn't know what I was doing, and they didn't know that I didn't know what I was doing. And then there was a time early in the pandemic where I kind of realized the same thing. Like I a week or two in the pandemic, it was like the power went out, and I was like, oh wow, like I really have no idea. I really have no idea what I'm doing. And I called a friend of mine a couple days later, and I said, my friend Mike had done the hunter gatherer course and a 14-day course 8 or 10 years earlier, and he'd been around the world. He'd done everything, and the only experience that he was still talking about in his life was his experience at Boss. And so I called him and I said, hey, what was that course you did? And he directed me to Boss. I went on the website and I just signed up. So that's actually like one thing I'd say early on is if you feel a tug to go to Boss, just go on and sign up. Because if I'd thought about it too long or looked for a hole in my schedule, at the time I had 3 kids, um, it would, there's always a reason that I couldn't go, right? So I just went on and I signed up for a 14-day. And I showed up to learn wilderness skills so that I would have a better ability to take care of myself and my kids camping. And just in general, so that I would be less dependent on technology and my phone and gear and tech and that kind of stuff to just to feel okay. And I learned all that stuff. I showed up at Boss. I trained really hard for it. I trained in a very serious way for it. A very serious. It wasn't like Rocky Four, like I wasn't like running on the train, but like I just, I went for a couple runs every week, and I went for a hike or two every week with like a weighted backpack. So I showed up pretty fit for my course, and my course and with pretty high expectations because my friend Mike had said how much he loved it and what an impact it had on him. And I was completely blown away by the power of the boss course. I learned all the stuff I hoped to come there to learn, friction fire, how to find and treat water, how to make shelter, how to identify various flora and fauna, how to how to select campsites, how to stay safe, how to feel much more comfortable in deep nature, like really, far from roads. I don't think we were on a trail. I mean, we maybe spent one day on a trail out of 14 days. Um, and that was really cool too. Like how to navigate, right? Like I'd spent a lot of time hiking and backpacking as a teenager, but I had never, ever hiked off trail. That was just didn't do it. The trail, as far as I was concerned, before I went to Boss, the trail is what takes you to the next place. And when I finished my just one Boss course, I was like, no, the trail is where you run into a bunch of other people. I know how to get to, from one place to the other off trail now. And I learned all that stuff. So if you want to come to Boss to learn all of that, you will learn all of it. The way the Boss course is structured, it makes sure of it. You're not, Boss instructors. There's a real learn to fly. Like at some point, we kind of nudge you from the nest during the course, and you will learn it. You'll learn it on your own. I mean, that's one thing to say about Boss instructors. They're extraordinarily kind and confident. It's the it's the greatest collection of badasses I've ever seen in my life, but no one acts like that. There's nobody that's like, there's not a lot of bombast, there's not a lot of chest thumping. They're really like the sweetest, kindest collection of people. I have this theory that if you are an actual badass, you don't need to act like one all the time. And that is really true with all the boss instructors. So I learned all that stuff on the boss course, but the I what I found to be so profound about it, and I don't use that word lightly, but what was so profound about it was the lasting impact of the course. Because what I got from putting my phone, not putting it away, not having any contact with a phone or technology or other humans. We didn't see another human on my course. On the 13th day, we ran into someone on horseback. What I got from all of that was this, and the quiet, and again, like this connection with deep nature was, I call it the best filing system I know in my life, because I showed up at a boss course thinking that all this stuff was really important, all this anxiety and stress and this thing and this project and that, da, da, da. And at the end of the course, well, really during the course, but at the end of the course, it just files things away and what's really important and what is noise inside my head. And that has lasted for me. It really has. Like, that is not something that faded away after the course. It's certainly more intense, it's more present for me 2 or 3 days after a course than it is 2 or 3 months later, but it's never left me. My wife took a course last summer and has had the same experience. It's been 6 or 8 months since her course, and has had that same perspective shift. That's what I call it. I've gotten an incredible perspective shift on my life. I think some people come to boss courses to really learn how to live off grid for the rest of their lives. I don't have any desire to live off grid. I like living in a house. I like running water. I like mattresses. I like all those things. I actually appreciate those things now because I do a boss course. There were so many things that I took for granted, and if I take for granted what I have, I seek more and more and more and more and more. And when I'm able to be really grateful for what I have, it just puts me in a place of much more calm. And all of that was really helpful when our house burned down in the LA fires at the beginning of January. And I did not go to Boss 5 years ago to prepare myself for my house to burn down. But that was the net result. Like, my whole family was better prepared for it. And I don't mean that, like, oh, our house burned down, we're going to build friction fire in the driveway and live here in the ashes. Like, we've tried to find, physical shelter to live in. But there was a perspective my wife and I have, and our children have gotten it as a result of it too, that just came from Boss. This concept that we teach on a course of compare down, right? I just kind of went through it without the name, but instead of looking at what you don't have, look at what you do have. I know that I can be really happy without any stuff. I mean, basically nothing on a boss course, and I'm like ecstatically happy when I'm out there. And so I brought a lot of that knowledge, the ability to compare down, and that perspective shift I've gotten from Boss. And so it's one of the reasons I recommend it so highly, is because, you know, it I did not expect that to happen to me, but it has been so much easier to deal with because I did this course 5 years ago to be better with my kids in deep nature. So, I couldn't speak more highly about it, and I couldn't recommend it more highly to people. But part of that is, I'd love to take questions, and because I think people are really, I was really curious, and I was also really anxious before my course. So if you feel anxious about it, that's totally normal. And yeah, I'd love to turn it over to Pam. I see Reese there. Hi, Reese. I'll let you introduce yourself too, and Perry, if you guys have anything to add, and then we can just take questions from anyone who's on and interested.
Cool. I can just introduce myself real quick. I'm Reese. I've been working at Boss since 2018, and I've just recently became a head instructor. And I originally took a Boss course because I heard about my older brother's friend when I was just a kid in like middle school at the time, talking about his Boss course. I overheard him talking about it to my brother, and it just sounded like the coolest thing. And I was already kind of into primitive skills as a kid, and so I never forgot that conversation. And I said it right then to my mom after I overheard that conversation. I was like, as soon as I turn 18, I'm going to take a Boss course. And I never forgot it. And I came out and I took my course. And I was really interested in a lot of the skills and stuff at that time, but ended up learning so much more than I could have ever imagined. And just having that hands-on experience of actually being out there, a lot of the challenges and stuff and things that I learned I did learn a lot of awesome skills, but then I just learned about so many other sides of myself. And a lot of the things that were ended up being most valuable in terms of the survival skills were the less tangible things that I experienced out there. Perry was actually my instructor on that course back then. And it ended up being like a rite of passage for me, and kind of was like that transition from being a kid to becoming an adult. And I feel like it was that boss course that was kind of that defining moment for me, and obviously had a big impact on my life. And I work here now, and it's been a huge blessing in my life. And I couldn't imagine my life without this place and without having taken my boss course. And I truly can't recommend it enough to people. It's such an incredible and special place, and I feel very, very lucky to be a part of it. Yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Reese. Yeah, thank you so much. Pam or Perry, you guys want to go?
I can go.
Yeah,
So when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time outside, but not with any purpose in mind. I grew up in the suburbs, but I was lucky enough that it was a newish town, so my backyard just went on and on without any like just it was a little yard and then woods forever, it seemed like. So I spent a lot of time in the outdoors just exploring. And at least one time when I was in grade school, I had the entire school come out searching for me because I just went out and didn't want to come back, which was great, not for them, but it was fun for me. Uh, and then, I grew up and got out of college and got a job, and I was living my life. And the outside wasn't as much of a part of my life as I had planned it being. I'd done some field work. I studied biology, and I was kind of hoping that I'd have a job working in the outdoors, but it didn't work out that way. I needed to just pay rent, so I got an office job basically, and then I don't know, thir- yeah, 13 years later, I was still in that office job and kind of living in the city, and I was in a relationship, and I kind of looked up, and I wasn't sure why any of that had happened and how I wound up there, and I remembered that a friend of mine who I grew up with had gotten his brother a gift of a boss course, a 7-day boss course, and these two guys were not outdoorsy folks. They were like designer artist types, but they definitely would search out and find unique things. And I just remembered I needed to get away from cell phones and email and everything. I just felt that. So I called him up and asked him about, what I remembered. What I remembered was 7 days in the desert, you have a knife and a water bottle, and there was a solo portion. And I was kind of terrified. It just seemed insane to me, but that was what I needed. So I looked it up, and I saw the longer courses, and I saw that, on the longer courses, you have the chance to process an animal, which is which was something that appealed to me. And I went from being scared of a 7-day to really knowing that I needed to do a 14 or 28-day. And I didn't have the time. Like I had a job and I'd have enough vacation time, but I just told my boss, hey, I'm doing this. And he said, all right, come back alive. Uh, and it was a really profound experience for me. I learned all the things that Jay talked about, and that was a great part of the course, and I cherished that stuff, but it was also a really good opportunity for me to reconnect with a lot of the things that I was connected with when I was a kid, and a lot of things that I felt like I had lost, just kind of, not unconsciously. Um, And so I remember the struggle, but I also remember just like really enjoying it and really enjoying the peace and quiet from everything else that I was kind of getting overwhelmed with. And then on the last night of the course, I remember looking up at the sky and thinking to myself, I knew I was going to be on my way home the next day. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't have to actually go home. I have everything I need right here. And it was a similar feeling to what I felt when I was a kid. And I knew I was going home, but uh it was a really neat moment for me to feel that and like hear that in my head. Um, and then I was lucky enough to be asked to come and, try being an instructor. And that has, the boss course itself really changed. I could tell immediately kind of changed my perspective and kind of reset me. And then working as an instructor has been just amazing. Um, it's a really special thing to facilitate people's own experiences in what can be a very profound moment. And, different people have different experiences, but I'm lucky enough to kind of be able to recharge, do this every summer, every season. And it really does make everything else so much easier. Like uh, this idea of just working with what you have and knowing that the morning's going to come and you'll be fine. And so, like, if I have to go without a meal or sit in traffic or, deal with someone who I don't want to deal with or sleep on the ground or whatever, I think, no big deal. Like, I can do that. And now that I have a son, it's really neat because when he was young, he could barely talk, but I remember when he was young, he said, "Pops, you can do it, I can do it." And he was saying, like, if you can do, like, I can do anything you can do, which was great. And it was great for me because I thought, like, and I like, it's not that I think I can do anything, but I'm not afraid of trying. And I think, and I'm not afraid of like the implication of something hard. And so that was a real gift of my boss course. So I'm nice. It's nice to kind of pass that on and be that person for my son, and also, as I said, facilitate other people's experiences with it. Um, yeah, and the last thing I remember during the pandemic, I have had office jobs on and off since then in the off season. And I remember during the pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic, I was thinking something's off. Like I don't feel right. And I was like, oh, I haven't done boss this year, and it was palpable. The the feeling of not having that connection, not having that recharge. Um, so it really crystallized for me what it does for me. And of course I get to go back every year, but there are people like Jay said, like Chris, who does it every year herself as a student. And I talk to alumni, and to a person, everyone talks about some change that they have kept, that they have held on to since their boss course. Yeah, and you learn how to make fire, so that's cool too. Pam.
Oh my gosh, thanks, Barry. Sorry, I want to squish in here. Um, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing that story. It's so awesome to reflect back on all of our experiences and how we've been transplanted from other worlds into this world. And my experience is very similar in that I was working in a corporate world and had a huge life shift when my husband and I decided to move to Utah so that he could be an apprentice at Boss after doing his 28-day course back in 2008. And I was fortunate enough to be able to jump on a 14-day course with Kat Bigney, Heath Miller, and Jess Ewing. And something you said, Perry, made me reminded me of my course on like day 8. I was like, why didn't I take a 28-day? Like, this is so valuable. And what I'm getting out of this, the moments that of being able to let go and disconnect from all of the minutia that was like eating up my life and just really sink into what mattered the most. Day 8, I was like, why didn't I do the longer course? I was so grateful that I took that 14-day course. And we had a group of 11 and the 3 instructors, and it was an awesome group. We were thriving by like day, I don't know, 3 or 4, making, the best of our rations, coming up with what we considered, gourmet uh, gourmet meals using wild foods and the meager rations we have. But I think like knowing that we could do more with less and get in the creativity that it inspired is something that really excited me. Being like a creative person, and just being out in nature and realizing all the gifts that are out there and the resources, and realizing that for how long has this planet and this world been our home, and feeling immersed in it to the degree that I was on my course, I just, by the end of it, didn't want to leave either. Like, also was, um, you know, really humbly saying goodbye to the whole experience. And it, it rocked me in all the different ways and brought me to all of my edges. I went into the course with a really terrible head cold, and it set me up for being really pushed physically, and ended up just learning so much from the various people that went with me. There was a gal who was super athletic soccer star who just like out hiked everyone, and but knew nothing about navigation. And this other fellow who had was a Boss alum, like took her under his wing and like taught her navigation on day one of navigation. Just to see strangers like bonding over these challenges that were presented really just brought me into this space of understanding what this course is all about, like that it's people being human, learning human skills again, all the skills that brought us to being alive today. All our ancestors had them, and relearning them. Like Perry mentioned, being able to create a fire from friction, just learning how to sleep like outdoors with very, very minimal gear, and make the best decision you can in the moment with the information you have, and understand all the risks and your priorities in those situations. It really just felt like a regrounding of my person, of my soul. And just now, and I finally understood why every boss course walks back onto the property with this amazing light and youth in their eyes, like they've just found what they've been looking for their whole life. And yeah, and now am working as an instructor and on the leadership team, and just want this experience to be available and accessible to so many people. So I really appreciate folks joining today, so we could answer questions. Please put them in the chat for us, if you have a chance. We're happy to help in any way that you have questions going forward on the courses. So yeah.
Um, Thanks, Pam. And I'll add one thing because I just remembered this from everyone else's um, share about their experiences. I think the thing that surprised me the most about my course, and then continues to surprise me when I apprentice on courses, is how much fun it is. Like yeah, it's called the survival school course. It's obviously hard, right? Like that doesn't surprise people, but the part that I'm surprised by continually every time is how much fun I have on the course and how much I laugh. I laugh more. I laugh more, and I laugh a lot normally in my regular life, but I laugh more, I laugh more on a boss course than I laugh at any other time. I don't know what it is. There's like the heaviness of regular life sheds, and I get a really humorous perspective on things, but I laugh my ass off on every course, and it's really great. Laughter's really healthy, and so that's something that surprises me, and I think would have surprised me if you told me that before I was a student. So
Thanks,
all right, yeah. If there are questions, yeah, ask away. Mm. Yeah, yeah. So it's a great question. I'm
Yeah.
48, and
And
I'm
actually,
also
I don't think the folks here heard the question, so we might have to repeat it. Is that right,
oh,
Alex?
can everybody hear your question, Alex? Okay, well,
Okay.
I'll repeat it. The question, in case that you couldn't hear, is what about sleep? Basically, I'm used to Alex is used to camping a lot in the backcountry, but with a lot with with enough gear to be really comfortable when he sleeps. Sleeping pad. I'm presuming sleeping pad, sleeping bag, pillow, uh, a heater with an extension cord that runs back to his house. Yeah, flat screen TV with a remote, so he doesn't have to get up. No, I'm kidding. But uh, I, it's an awesome question, and it's the first big lesson you learn on a boss course is how to be comfortable when you sleep. And I've never paid more attention to any lesson in my life than that lesson the first full day of the boss course. And since I got that lesson, on the nights that I've paid attention to it and have made the effort to do what to do what I was taught, there are nights where I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to ignore that critical lesson. I'll be just fine laying down here without doing the work to make myself a bed. At 1 in the morning, I have gone, you are an idiot. This is not a good idea. But you basically learn how to make a really comfortable bed. That's the only thing to call it out of just what's around. And I've had the best sleep of my life on a boss course. And it's not just because I have four little kids who wake me up all the time, but that's part of it. But I've had the best sleep of my life on boss courses, and I have almost always shown up at to a boss course with some kind of ailment, usually a crimp in my neck or a problem in my lower back, and sleeping that close to the ground without a man-made object between me and the ground. I actually can't explain it. I'm not a doctor or a physical therapist or anything. I'll just tell you, I show up with some kind of injury and I sleep really close to the ground without any of the Western, REI bought accoutrement that I use by the way, that I use when I camp a lot with my kids. And I leave without whatever that ailment is bothering me at all. It's like 2 or 3 days. And this is a common thing with students, certainly students that are closer to my age, like late 40s, 50s, 60s. They're like, oh, my back, I'm really worried. And like 3 or 4 days in, they'll be like, that thing is gone, and I can't explain it, but you sleep. I sleep great, and I hear from a lot of students once they learn how to do it that they sleep great. They sleep great too. So
I have the same experience. I probably get the best sleep that I ever get out in the field on a boss course, and part of that is because you earn it. Um, your body's ready for it. I feel like, sitting in front of a computer all day and then trying to go to sleep, it's like, well, your body's like, well, why? Like, what have you done? What have you done to deserve this? But I also, like, before I started instructing, I had back problems and knee problems, and I'm a side sleeper, and you figure all that stuff out. And even on the nights where there isn't a lot around, where I'm like, well, I guess I'll deal with this sand and I'll use this rock for a pillow, I still get really good sleep. It's amazing. And but Jay is right. You do have to put in the time. There was one time we were somewhere for a few days and it was very cold, and I was sleeping cold every night. And partly it's because I wasn't taking the time to, make a good bed. And so finally one night I just spent, a good hour or two working on my bed and preparing myself to sleep. And I finally slept through the night, and then I woke up in the morning and it had snowed, and I
mm,
hadn't woken up until the sun came up. And it's just like, just a testament to putting the time in. You can like, yeah, I get the best sleep out there.
yeah, and that snow situation Perry's talking, I'm guessing there's definitely no sleeping bag involved there. There's definitely no
No,
tent involved there, right? And that's a
no.
sleeping in a snowstorm with probably a wool blanket on a pile of pine straw. But if you do it right, you can be really, really, really warm and cozy.
Mhm.
Great. We'll take it. I'll take water, and then we can parcel the questions out. There are four of them and four of us, so I'll go with water because that's the easiest one. Um, we do purify our water. You can boil it if you have a, but we don't use lighters or or stoves, right? So starting a fire, the only way you're going to have a fire to boil is with friction fire. So you don't just scoop it out of the river and then get a bow drill fire going. And so that's like a, you can do that, but that can't be like an all day thing. We use a water purification drops called Aquamira, and they work really well. I've spent a lot of, I've drank hundreds and hundreds of bottles of water on a boss course and have gotten sick once, purifying. And I think that was because I was on the hunter gatherer course, and that's a very low, it can be a very low calorie course. And I'm pretty sure that I purified this. You don't even have a water bottle there. You have a gourd. I'm pretty sure I purified this gourd and then drank this gourd. And so I got kind of sick, but that's literally hundreds and hundreds of bottles of water using Aquamira, and have been completely fine on every course. So yeah, that's water.
Reese or Pam, you want to take one of the other ones?
Um, I could talk
But we
about
teach.
ration.
We also
Oh,
teach.
go ahead.
Sorry, just that we do teach a bunch of ways to purify water. What we do on our course is Aquamira, but we have a lesson out on a course where we teach you many ways to purify water. Because, hey, if you need to survive, the one way to do it is Aquamira. Hope you have some with you. It's not. That's not really. That's not very effective. So we teach a bunch of ways to purify water. And I've used some of them in a pinch, just backpacking, doing solo backpacking on my own. Thanks to Boss was okay. So that's water.
So I can speak to that there's a couple different perspectives because we have courses that are more base camp oriented that have a higher calorie count and more meals provided. And then our expedition courses where you're traveling, we provide around $1,500
That's
calories a day of provisions. And part of the course is learning how your body will work on that calorie count. And it's kind of amazing that you can do amazing things with less calories. But also, yeah, along the way, it's all about the land and what it's going to teach us and what's available. So a philosophy of Boss is positive impact. So we're really conscious on our harvesting ethics and how much we do consume from the land, on field expeditions and the skills courses. And, there are courses and course phases where we're doing things like trapping and teaching various primitive traps. And we are able to trap small rodents and things. Hunting and trapping and fishing, you'll definitely do on our hunter-gatherer course to a different degree. But of course, there's certain permits, that we have to have for all of that. And it's all about the land area you're in and what's available. We're really sinking into being responsive to the land area, and understanding how to track and look for sign and just be aware, so there's a lot that's unplanned and is happens in the moment. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about our courses is that's experiential education. You are out there doing it for real. Nothing has been set up. There's no movie crew in the background, TV crew that's like provided rations or set up some kind of like animal that you can hunt right there. It's all very much a real time experience. And trying to think what else was on there as far as rations. Fishing, yes, we do fish. I would say it's probably one of our most productive ways of getting some protein when it's not a pine nut year. And so we do teach methods of fishing out in the backcountry, group-oriented ones and ones where you're maybe more on your own. We've also had students improvise fishing kits with their dental floss and a safety pin from their med kit, which is amazing too. So we have lots of different methods for that out there as well. And so it all depends on the course you sign up for. There's a myriad of options as far as how much time and space will be allowed to procuring sustenance from the land. So our primitive living intensive is more focused on that. In the second phase, the hunter-gatherer, that's what it's about, is going out and doing that for 9 days of the course, at least, I think. So yeah. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything to that, but
Do you want to talk a little bit more about like foraging?
sure. Yeah, foraging is something that I think, like on every course, people are really excited about, right? Because these are skills that you can take home, and a lot of folks like to say plants don't run away from you, so they're a lot easier to gather and consume. And so we have a lot, like even though we're based in the desert Southwest, it's a varied ecosystem from riparian zones up to, high mountain. So we love to introduce folks to foraging techniques and plants all through those ecosystems and help you understand ways that you can transfer that knowledge to your home, to where you travel and those thought processes. So part of what we're doing is the whole, teaching you how to forage versus just handing over those plants. The whole idea of like, if you teach a man to fish, he'll be able to feed himself for life kind of idea. So yeah. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to add, Reese? About,
Foraging and stuff.
yeah, trapping, fishing.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on the course. If the longer field courses, you're almost certainly going to have a chance to trap and fish. On the 14 day, like on 28 day, you'll definitely probably fish, and you'll probably almost certainly have opportunity to do trapping if you so choose. On a 14 day, those things will be talked about and they'll be taught, and there's a decent chance you'll have an opportunity to put those into practice. And then obviously, like she said, there's the primitive living course where you do a lot of foraging and fishing and trapping, and hunter-gatherer, you do a ton of it. So if that's something you're really into, I would steer more towards like the primitive living course or a longer course, like the 28 day, if that's something you want to do. And then there is a lot of foraging, like Pam was saying. We definitely try to take advantage of a lot of plants out there and stuff. And it varies from course. Sometimes people are super into it. Usually they are, like Pam said, but sometimes people are just not super game. But I've had a lot of meals where our stew is, or a lot of courses where people are all about it. And we gather all kinds of goodies, all kinds of greens and roots and different things. And we beef up our rations significantly with the wild foods out there, and it's something I really enjoy doing and making time for on courses. And so you'll definitely learn a ton about it, and you'll probably get to use it, and certainly get to use it if you take the right course.
I would just add one thing on the trapping and fishing. You do trapping and fishing. It's just with basically stuff you find out there, unless you're going to improvise something from your med kit. So you're doing deadfall traps and other primitive kinds of fishing and trapping. So that's what you should expect.
It's a little
So
it's a little intimate. I've never even met Joshua, and no. No. Uh, who wants
I
to
can
take
answer
that?
that. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
answer the hygiene question. So in general, we dig cat holes for when we defecate. Um, we find that it's the easiest. It not only leaves the least trace, but also has the most positive impact in terms of like we're not carrying anything out there, we're not taking anything back. We don't use toilet paper, um, with the one exception of um, our skills course, which is base camp oriented, there is a latrine with toilet paper, but almost I think every other course, you're digging cat holes and you're finding natural materials to wipe with. And we teach you all that while you're out there, of course. Um, yeah, and you get pretty good at listening to your body and knowing when it's time to dig a hole before it's too late. And you start to find your favorite natural toilet paper as well, which is nice. It's nice walking down the trail and you see your friend who is, your favorite toilet paper, and you kind of take them with you.
Yeah, and there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
There's like that's what I've learned is that there's a lot of really comfortable natural toilet paper from mullein leaf to certain types of pine cones, which sounds crazy, but they're,
Mhm.
to all kinds of stuff. So,
I can cover a question that I can cover. I was having a discussion with someone who was thinking about a course, and they were saying, that they could definitely get away for a week, um, and that shouldn't be a problem. But they really wanted to come for a longer time, and they thought 2 weeks. Uh, they're like, I don't think I can get away for 2 weeks. I think I'd just be in my head the whole time, just thinking about everything I'd left, all the things I have to do, the people who need things from me. And I was just smiling to myself when they were saying this. I said, if you did come for 2 weeks, then you would let all of that stuff go and you'd learn to, you, you know, you would just, what I find, you just naturally figure out like, actually, things have a tendency to work themselves out and you tend to worry less. So I think, like Jay said, if you're thinking about coming, one good strategy is just to sign up. It's kind of what I did. Like, it took me a long time for when I first heard about it, but when I decided to go, I just picked a course and signed up. I didn't do much reading about it. Um, I just showed up.
yeah, that's a good. I'm glad you said that, Perry. Like, the students, yes, there are college students on a gap year. There are people who are taking 6 months off and have the course finishes and they have, like, where are you going? They're like, I don't know. I'm just going to drive for a while until I find. But those students are there. There are a lot of students who, there are ER doctors, a lot of doctors, a lot of nurse practitioners, partners at white shoe law firms, people who run parts of the United States government, the superintendent of a large school district in California. I have four kids
Yeah,
and
parents with young kids.
parents with young kids. I have four kids and a lot going on with work. And you just, I won't say you, but I just made time for it, and a lot of people do make time for it. So if that probably was a concern of mine before I went to, but it's totally possible to do, and you won't be alone. Like this is there are a lot of real type A, not all, but there are a lot of type A people with really tight schedules who come to Boss and love it and are those people. I really relate to those students, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. There's the thing that we discuss, that I often discuss with students like that, called the phantom buzz, which is that 2 3 days in, they're positive they feel this thing vibrating, but it's not anywhere near. And then that just goes away, and there's this drop of tension because you just are where you are. There's nothing pulling you out of it. There's no technology or schedule or this or that pulling you out of it. It's a very powerful and very rare experience. I mean, I know how powerful and great it is, and the only time I have it in a given year is when I do a boss course. So,
That was Alex. Yeah, that was Alex. Who the person I was talking to.
That's great. Um, I was just gonna mention I had a conversation with someone yesterday who was 17, and he was like, "Oh, I really want to come out. Like, it just sounds amazing." And I wanted to mention, like, as far as ages, like, we can have participants that are 18 and over. And he's going to try to come out at the end of the season next year when after he turns 18 as like a celebration of that moment. And I really appreciated what Reese said earlier about, um, thinking about it as a rite of passage. And we have folks that maybe are graduating high school, graduating college, in between a job change, and I think I'm seeing Roger's question here about he's saying he's in his 50s and he's wondering about the pace of the courses, and it just went away. And if he won't be able to keep up with the folks in their 20s or 30s. And I think we do have, we do operate at high elevation, and it is high desert. There are, you know, various things that are going to test you physically, but I think one of the most important things is that the group is a varied group. That's going to teach everyone on the group so much about themselves and how to live in a group in a survival situation. And that's one of the things that we can't control as instructors. Our participants come from all different backgrounds, and we love that about what we offer because it's the biggest variable and it's the most exciting to us as instructors to get to know everyone and then facilitate that whole experience for everyone to work together. I was on a course with our oldest student who was 74 years old, and she was awesome. Her attitude, and when she needed help, she asked for it, and everyone was happy to oblige because it was rad that she took this challenge and went out there and did this course. It was a week-long course, and so I think that in general, Perry, correct me if I'm wrong, our average students age is actually more in like the late 30s now.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've had similar experiences having people in their 70s on courses, and it's never an issue, and I've had young, but like I had one course with a Marine in I think his late 20s, and he was the one who couldn't keep up. And uh and so we slowed down for him. And everyone has a challenge. Everyone's challenge is different. Most people's challenge isn't what they expect. Um, and oftentimes that slow person winds up being some other kind of support for someone else on the course,
Yeah.
helping them with whatever struggle they're having. So, someone might not be able to keep up in terms of the pace, but like in terms of being some kind of mental or emotional touchstone for someone, like that's often way more important.
Yeah, we're also not we're not running, right? I mean, I'm not this isn't a metaphor. Like we're literally not running, and so it's more like, can you keep yourself going? Not can you keep up, right? And so there's, yeah, probably I'm 48, a fit 22-year-old can move faster than me, but I've got a lot of life experience and I know how to push myself through a lot. And so a lot of times on those courses, the 50 something student has got the mental fortitude to push through a longer day and just keep moving. Because again, you don't have to move at a super fast pace. It's just pick your foot up, put your foot down, pick your foot up, put your foot down, pick your foot up. And I find a lot of times older students are very comfortable and capable of doing that because you've had to do that a lot in your life by the time you're in your late 40s or 50s or 60s. And on the hunter gatherer course, we had a number of extraordinarily fit students, and a student who was in his 50s with a bit of a medical issue. It was cleared by our doctors, but and his mental fortitude was so strong that he just picked his foot up, put it down, picked his foot up, put it down, and he was a real inspiration to all of us. And one or two of those fittest students, like they in their 20s they weren't used to hitting those kinds of mental walls, because it really is, that's actually at least what I've found that it's almost always a mental wall that you hit and push through. It's a physical wall creates the mental wall, but it's ultimately a mental wall. And that this student in his 50s was much more capable, but he could push through the mental wall with much greater ease than the 20 something student. And in this wonderful, beautiful way, he ended up helping the super fit student push through his mental wall, which is not what you would have predicted on day one. You'd look at this group and think, well, this person will be carrying this person, and it was the flip of it, and it was really beautiful to see.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really good question. Thanks for asking that, Roger. I think that was a
Yeah,
Yeah.
really
thank
good
you.
question. Any other questions? Okay.
So, in terms of how many miles we cover in a day, it varies greatly. There are some days where we might not hike at all, and there's some days where we might think we might hike 5 or 8 miles, and we might wind up walking a lot more. Um, I believe on my student course, which was a 14-day course, my instructor, who was in her 50s, um, she calculated we did about 114 miles over 14 days. And I've done 14-day courses where the instructor calculated we did 17, or not 70 miles. So it depends on the time of year, it depends on the group. In later courses, you have shorter days. Um, depends on a lot of things. But in general, on many days of a course, you're probably going to be walking most of the daylight hours. Not every day, but you know, with
Yeah,
with breaks.
and yeah, and part of
Yeah, I
the
would say on like our skills courses, the 7 days a week long, we have a short hike in the beginning into the base camp, and then a short hike out at the end. And then on the 14-day skills course, we have a week of producing all of the gear that you're going to take out in the field with you to actually try it out and use it at a primitive base camp. And so we'll hike out. It's about 5, 6 mile or so hike. And then the second week, you're hiking 1 or 2 miles every day. And then you're hiking back to a pickup point or a return point to at the end of the course. So those two courses are probably our least amount of hiking. I would probably say our hunter gatherer, and then obviously the 28-day, just because of the nature of it being 28 days, are the courses that hike the most. I don't know, Reese, do you have any?
Yeah, I think you all covered it pretty well.
Cool. Any more questions? I guess one thing we were talking about earlier that is a common question of folks is, what does it look like to get tuition assistance, a scholarship, or any kind of discounts? And we do have an awesome web page that lists everything out, and we encourage folks to apply for that. We have, now that we've become a nonprofit, we have a robust scholarship fund, and it's really awesome. And that's all thanks to our alum and our board and the support of folks that have been through courses and want to make it accessible for people to be able to go. So, for outdoor educators, or if you're have been in the military, things like that, we do have discounts available. And I encourage you to go check out the website to see that full listing of offerings. So.
I'd just say we always like answering questions. So if we didn't answer anything here, feel free to call us or reach out by message or whatever. Um, yeah. So, and we hope to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it. And, feel free to email if you have any additional questions. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks all. Good to see y'all. We'll see you in the season
Yeah.
starts soon.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah. And thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thanks,
Alex.
Alex. Thanks, Pam. Thanks, Reese. Thanks, Perry. Have a great weekend, everybody.
You
All
too.
right.
Well, too.
Signing
Bye.
off.
Peace.
Thanks.